I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Blake. Today, we're going to talk about an issue in the transportation industry regarding people with limited mobility and how our product will both remedy the issue and improve on existing infrastructure. Now, on to the problem. Thank you, Blake. Unless you live in an urban environment with expansive mass transit networks, modern self-transportation is designed for the average person. People with limited mobility, including people in wheelchairs and scooters, are left behind. Someone with these limitations can't just buy a regular consumer vehicle and drive themselves wherever. Somehow, they have to bring their chosen method of transportation along with them, and a lot of the time, a wheelchair or a scooter is too large to fit into the trunk of a car. Not to mention the difficulty that a disabled person would have getting into or out of a car after stowing away their wheelchair. In places with comprehensive bus or subway networks, many people in wheelchairs can travel fairly easily. However, there is a limited network of locations that mass transit can directly deliver a person to, as well as a strict transit schedule people with limited mobility have to center their commutes around. Considering these drawbacks, an immobile person's independence is still limited. In rural or suburban locations, the point of mass transit is moot, and all of the current solutions are either too expensive or time-consuming. Currently, there are no cheap and effective ways for someone with limited mobility to be truly independent, and that is what Kyle will elaborate on in these next few slides. Take it away.
Thank you, Blake. One of the available solutions for people with limited mobility is using a modified van. Modifying a van can cost up to $10,000 to $30,000 on top of the cost of the van itself, which ranges from $30,000 to $70,000. Medicare does not cover the cost of the modified van since it is not deemed medically necessary for people who use wheelchairs or scooters. The limitation of using a modified van is only designated people who use wheelchairs can drive it. An intrinsic limitation is that the person is stuck with the van for vehicle transportation instead of a vehicle they desire, such as maybe a sedan or a truck or an SUV. Another available solution is installing a hitch to the end of the vehicle to station the wheelchair during transportation. A different name for this is commonly known as the wheelchair carrier. The cost of this mechanism ranges from $400 to up to $3,500, depending on what type of carrier you want for the specific vehicle you're using. A limitation for this solution is that another person is required to move the wheelchair to the carrier before the drive and to retrieve it when they reach the destination. This would make the person with limited mobility dependent on another person for transportation, which is the opposite of what we're trying to propose. Public transit is useful for those who do not have their own vehicle, but there are many possible inconveniences that follow. Public transit may not have the ability to transfer people who use wheelchairs due to the physical design of the transportation vehicle. That means it needs to be scheduled for people who use wheelchairs, but it's only available at certain times and certain locations, and that can seriously hinder a person's schedule. Public transportation can also take a while to transport a person to their desired location, since they transport multiple people and they have a scheduled path to follow. Overall, the use of public transit is a dependent source of transportation that is also inconvenient. It is possible for people with limited mobility who are still able to drive to be independent. The video exemplifies how someone who uses a wheelchair is able to transport themselves and the wheelchair into the vehicle independently, but with the cost of scratches to the doors of the car. The requirement is to have sufficient upper body strength to do these tasks of lifting themselves and the parts of their vehicle across themselves into their car. But not every person will be able to do that with ease. Now Josh is going to talk about our solution.
Thank you, Kyle. Our idea is to combine the technology in the Roomba vacuum with an electric wheelchair. The way this would work is that the user would position the wheelchair close to the vehicle and transfer themselves into their seat. Once inside the vehicle, they'd press a button on the wheelchair, and the wheelchair would use sonar sensors to guide itself along the side of the vehicle to the rear. Once at the back, the wheelchair would clamp onto a hitch mount and raise itself off the ground. Then the driver could then drive away wherever they want to. Once at their destination, they'd press a button on a remote, and the wheelchair would return to its previous position. With this design, the only modifications to the vehicle is a hitch mount, which some vehicles already have one. This design is also a fraction of the cost of modifying a van to be wheelchair accessible. This design will also work on more types of vehicles, as the only requirement is a hitch. The user could choose to have a sports car, pickup truck, SUV, or an RV. It could also be used in the times when they need to use a rental vehicle or a friend's vehicle. This would allow a person that uses a wheelchair to get around when they want without any help.
Adding to the list of advantages our product provides, there are numerous ways in which the scope of the product can be expanded into a package that serves to assist those in wheelchairs beyond just holding the wheelchair on the back of the car. For example, the initial clamp design on the rear end of the vehicle could be remodeled to include a charging port, so that electric wheelchairs can be charged during transit using the car's battery. Potentially, the clamp could allow for multiple wheelchairs at a time, enabling multiple people who require wheelchairs to travel together using the same car. One of the most useful features, not planned to be part of the first iteration, is the ability to control a wheelchair remotely in any setting, via a handheld remote or a smartphone app. Now, going back to the vehicle-to-wheelchair charging, we could potentially include a home docking station as part of the package. Most people have to charge their wheelchairs using a third-party wall plug adapter. Since the wheelchair already has the ability to be piloted, it could pilot itself to the location of the home docking station where it would charge between uses. After seeing how our product can revolutionize travel for people with limited mobility, we hope that you will be willing to join us in our journey to a world with more independence for wheelchair users. Thank you.